So I guess it would be a good idea to make a video talking about 2023. What do I expect? What do I think is going to happen? That sort of stuff. And to be honest, I mean, do we really want to talk about server meshing? Do we really want to talk about a new flight model? I mean, we can, but let's be honest, these things are not coming in 2023, so they're beyond the scope of this conversation. Instead, how I kind of want to approach this is the idea of what I'm looking forward to in 2023. Now, towards the end of the year, with sort of CitizenCon and the anniversary sale, there was a noticeable surge in player interest, obviously. I mean, if you have a Star Citizen YouTube channel, you see it, right? You always get this huge boost in views and subs and stuff like that. It happens every year. But what was interesting, something that I had never heard myself or other people say before, was that we knew that while we were doing this, while we were all of a sudden playing the game a lot more than we used to play it, and I have to qualify that a little, or I have to add to that a little bit for myself, because at the same time I had decided to dip back into WoW for Dragonflight, and Dragonflight was really, really good. I mean, really good. I'm having a lot of fun, but at the same time, I was still cutting out and making time for Star Citizen, and these two things were running in tandem. And I was coming home, and I was sitting there, and I was going, "Oh, okay, I know I have to do this tonight, but then tomorrow night I want to do Star Citizen." And every time I would log into Discord, people were like, "Hey, do you want to play SC?" And it's like, "Yeah, I do. It's really good." And it doesn't have to do just with this ship that's on the screen right now, but it also has to do with the game feeling a lot better. Now, there's also isn't it weird how the game seems to run a little bit smoother during the free flies and the anniversary events, and then all of a sudden the servers kind of get crappy again? Yeah, I've noticed that too. Maybe there's a little bit more of an allowance for borrowed hardware when these events are running. Who knows? But honestly, one of the more interesting things is that as we came up to the end of the year, a lot of people started to slow down, and that's the normal cycle, right? Where all of a sudden these big events happen, we play SC more and more and more, and then we come up to this point, we say, okay, and then we set it aside, and then we wait until the next patch, and we play it a lot again, and then we stop playing for a while. But we had an extra reason to kind of stop, which is we knew that there was going to be a character reset with the release of 3.18, which at the time we thought was going to be towards the end of December, hilariously enough. But with the character reset, it kind of made it extra meaningless to earn cash in the game. So we were kind of, we don't want to repeat the same cycles over and over again. We want to enjoy the game, but we don't want to burn ourselves out on the game. But with the release of 3.18 and Salvage not just on the Vulture, but on the Reclaimer as well, I found myself at a point where, even though I haven't probably played Star Citizen at all this week since I got back from Christmas, at least, in fact, I can honestly say I haven't. I am very much looking forward to 3.18. Very much looking forward to it. I want to start looking at and answering questions of the potential of the Reclaimer. One of the more interesting problems that a lot of people face is that, or are going to face, is going to be the same problem that, plagued the Prospector for quite a long time, and the mole to a certain degree, which is you're out there, you're mining, players know where you're mining, you're going to the place that's highlighted on the YouTube video or in the forum post, which also happens to be public. And so the pirates know where you're going, and they're out there hunting you too. And a lot of people were starting to remark that on the PTU, salvagers were starting to get hunted, that because everyone knew where the wrecks were. And so I started to go, well, what if they don't know where the wrecks are? What if instead the ship that you're flying is making the wrecks? What does that do to, let's say, a combat mission when you add the return of the material that the ship is made of, at least the hull? In the future, what happens when you add perhaps components of the ship, cargo of the ship, all these things that might fall out of it? Well, that gets a lot more interesting. That significantly changes the financial calculus is this a worthwhile pursuit? Because all of a sudden, a bounty mission that may at its face not be all that valuable, let's say like a medium or something like that, maybe not, but what happens if you are facing, a constellation or perhaps a caterpillar, and you can take that fight and you can carry the day, and then you get to salvage that ship plus its cargo? Interesting. And so this is the kind of things that I'm looking forward to, and I feel that we're finally in a place where we can ask these questions. This brings forward a lot of interesting possibilities. It asks a lot of interesting questions. One of the other things that we're supposed to get later on in this year is ship-based tractor beams on initially the Argo SRV, though I would hope that at the very least things like the Cutlass Black, the Caterpillar, and the Reclaimer have that implemented as well. Obviously I'm going to be a little bit biased because I own all three, but those are ships that one of their core features is that ship-based tractor beam. So I would make an argument that it is kind of a critical feature for those ships, and one of those things that's going to be a real power amplifier or force multiplier in their being able to take on the tasks that they are supposed to take on in the Star Citizen universe. We're on the cusp of really starting to answer a lot of these really interesting questions and open up possibilities as to different ways to approach combat missions, different ways to approach interdiction and things like that. We're now starting to bring a lot of these pieces together. We have a place like Grim Hex where we can sell these goods, whether they be legal or illegal. We're moving in a very interesting place. And so while, of course, server meshing and PES are interesting, they're not happening. Well, server meshing especially is not going to happen in 2023, along with the new flight model. I mean, sorry, but it's just not. Too many ships, too many things to change, too many things to really examine before it makes it into the persistent universe. So I don't think that it's going to happen, and I know there's a lot of people who will very vocally state that they're so in love with the idea of, I take a drink and I throw my drink on the ground, and that serves as a marker that I was here, and everybody who comes to my shard or instance or whatever is going to see that and go, I wonder who dropped that there, and it's going to be me, and it's going to be profound. But it's these things with tractor beams and ships, this slowly kind of bringing loops together. I would say that the most profound thing that is really going to change Star Citizen, aside from something like server meshing, is going to be not the persistence of the coffee cup, but the persistence of the character. Adding meaning and consequence to gameplay. Real meaning and consequence. Things that you carry forward. Those two things, I would argue, the persistence of character and server meshing, are really the biggest and most important things to the future of Star Citizen. And that other things like the new flight model and whatnot, They're things that are would be nice to have, but I think that server meshing and persistence of character will give us a much better footing in terms of ideas and philosophies to take on the future of what Star Citizen will eventually become, and not just what it's kind of idealized to become in a presentation. So I'm looking forward to it. We're stepping into some interesting ideas and some interesting spaces. I don't think that 2023 is going to be a colossal year for Star Citizen. Maybe it's funding, but I think it seems like it's going to be a good year.
Thank you for watching. So if you want to keep up with the latest and greatest in Star Citizen and Squadron 42's development, please follow us on our social media channels. See you soon.